everybody, it's Eric Papenfuse. It's Friday, so it must be a buy day. And today we're going to talk about some finds that we made at the largest book sale on the East Coast this past week in State College, Pennsylvania. It's sponsored by the American Association of University Women, and it's all about raising money for scholarships. And if you want to see what it looked like in the sale, last year we put a video on buy day that brought you into the sale and showed you pictures of the tables and the organization. So go to our YouTube page, type in Midtown Scholar Bookstore if you haven't already, click on videos and go back about a year and you can see the actual sale from last year. While you're there, don't forget to please like and subscribe to our page by hitting the bell there on YouTube. Lots of amazing content, all right? But we're going to get to probably the two most exciting finds that we made at the sale. I found them. I was really pleased to find them. Here we go. But there's an added theme today, Amanda. It's not just about the books. It's about things we found inside the books.
That's always the best.
Which is really, really interesting. So we're going to start. We're going to call these a 3-for-1 with 3 books that look remarkably similar, don't they? And these are all 3 Mennonite religious texts from the early American Republic, published by a printer by the name of Michael Bill Meyer. Now, Bill Meyer was in Germantown, Pennsylvania, which is really part of Philadelphia. And the story goes that during the American Revolution, the great Pennsylvania printer Christopher Sowers' presses were destroyed by the British. And after the war, Bill Meyer bought what remained of those presses and got them up and running. And really from the period post the American Revolution all the way into the New Republic, he was the principal printer in German for the Mennonites of Pennsylvania. You can still see Michael Bill Meyer's house today if you go to Philadelphia. It's a house museum. All right. Now, what makes these books similar is that all 3 are bound in classic Pennsylvania style, and they have these clasps, and I'll show you on the first book that we're going to look at, that lock, and they're very plain. There's no spine band telling you what the book is, right? Also, they're made with wood boards, leather over top of wood, which is common for Pennsylvania, but a little bit unusual. You wouldn't see that elsewhere in the colonies, okay? The first book is the oldest. It is one of his New Testaments that he printed in 1803. This is considered the 3rd edition of the New Testament, the first one coming on those Christopher Sowers presses right amidst the Revolution, and the second earlier than that, and the third in 1803. Now, I promised you something interesting in each of these books, and I found this interesting. So come close, Amanda. If you go to the middle of the book, you find that there is a piece of paper which basically says Millersville, Carlisle, and Lancaster. So that was interesting, too, because that's right near us in central Pennsylvania. But when you take it out and you unfold it, you see what it has inside. It has a lock of hair. And it's not just a lock of anybody's hair. It is nice blonde Mennonite hair, right? Wouldn't you say? And this was very common in the Victorian period to save locks of hair, but this is even earlier. You know, the early Republic, and there's another lock of hair in here. So, and the second lock of hair, Amanda, is braided. So it's probably a woman and a man intertwining the locks of their hair and saving them inside the beautiful German New Testament. Isn't that cool?
That's so sweet.
All right, so that's story number 1. I immediately grabbed all these books without even looking at the pricing because I knew what they were and I knew that we collected them. We have other Bill Meyer imprints over in our religious section. The second book is neat because it is a Mennonite hymnal. And remember last week we did Isaac Watts and we talked about his hymns, which were very popular. But this is the equivalent in the German Mennonite congregations. This is neat because, look, it has a woodcut of Martin Luther. It's a signed woodcut, and it's by a Pennsylvania artist who did woodcuts for books during this period. This one is from 1813. And what I like about it's hymns in the beginning, and then it ends with sort of a prayer book. But what I like about it is it has all this wonderful family information about the Stabley family. And this is similar to what we saw in the Watts hymn book as well. But you have all these births of all the various people in the family going back even before the book was printed to about 1802, going up through the War of 1812. It's basically a genealogy of the Stabley family. And then something interesting happens. By the 1830s, it passes out of the family through marriage and it goes to a different family called the Garner family. And the Garners were no longer Mennonites. And in fact, the Garner goes on to be a colonel. He moves to Iowa and he fights in the Mexican War, which is very interesting and non-Mennonite. But it also shows you how these families from the York, Pennsylvania area all sort of intermarried and eventually married outside of the Mennonite faith, some of them. And the books were preserved and handed down. Okay? So family genealogy in book 2. But what was in book 3 was by far the most amazing thing I've ever seen in a Mennonite book. And it may be unique. Book 3 is, let's look at the book before we get to what was in it, is just a basic, it's David's Psalms. It's another religious book. But inside it, and then it was this, and I put it in plastic to protect it. It is a handbill for the 1844 presidential election. In Pennsylvania with the electors for the Polk Davis ticket. And what's interesting is it's double-sided. It was designed to be cut. This is like, there were 4 to a sheet and they designed to cut them out. But you could either get the one with like the ship icon on it, or you could get the one with the Workers Unite icon on it, which is really pretty neat. And what makes it unusual, of course, is that the Mennonites generally didn't vote. And in fact, it was against their faith to participate in the political process. But something very interesting happened right about the time of the Polk election. This is the election of 1844, which is that Pennsylvania passed a law in the late 1830s requiring schools to teach English instead of German. And you have a number of the Mennonite communities beginning to this sort of process of modernization. They're starting to speak English. They're starting to do outreach to other faiths and other communities. And guess what? They're starting to vote. And then this leads to a schism in 1844 in the Mennonite church. But this could be the earliest proof, if we call it proof, of Mennonite voting patterns in America, which is really cool. Also, Dallas, George Mifflin Dallas was from Philly. So Polk had chosen a vice president who could help motivate Pennsylvanians, which I think is just fascinating. This was inside the book. It's worth more than the book. So sure. Another thing that was worth more than the book, oh, wait till you see it. Book number 2, Amanda, this is incredible. I told the rest of the crew, I found this, they were like, no, not possible. This little book was in the rare book room. Everybody passed it by, probably because it's not that interesting a looking book, but when you open it up, there is a silver gorilla. I'm not kidding. And it was designed for the book. You can pull open this flap. You can pull the medallion out. You can see the silver hallmarks. It's actual silver, pretty heavy. Wow. And it's of Guy the Gorilla. Guy the Gorilla was a very famous sculpture by this sculptor, David Wynn. And he made a couple of very limited editions of this book, some of which he made for special donors, including Barbara and Jim Palmer. And if you know the Palmer Art Center in State College, they founded that. They're renovating it as we speak in State College. But clearly he said, thanks for visiting the studio, and he gave them this silver medallion, which again is worth more than the book. The medallion, which is even reproduced in the book as one of his examples, was made for the Wildlife Fund Conservation for Gorillas, which were becoming extinct at that time. There was a famous book that was published called Gorillas in the Mist, and there was lots of conservation efforts going on in Rwanda. And this medallion became something of a status symbol, and it's worth a lot of money, Amanda. And what's interesting is, just to tie it back to last week, Wynn is famous for 2 of his great sculptures. Look, there he is with the early Prince Charles.
Oh my.
Yeah, and he also did the Beatles. And you want to know one other interesting fact about the sculptor?
Sure.
He is the one who introduced the Beatles to the Maharishi Yogi. And that whole period in Beatles history wouldn't have happened had David Wynn not also done a sculpture of the Yogi as well, which is really, really neat. So by far, that is both the most valuable and most interesting thing I have ever found in a book. Never would have guessed there had been a silver medallion. All right, we're going to end with a funny book. Now, this is great, too, because they had a lot of art books at State College. And this one really makes you think about modern art. So this is a book by Tim Davis. And when you open it up, you see that it is his collection of photographs of famous works of art that are sort of blurry, washed out with things, and basically badly photographed. So it is a art book of badly photographed art.
I love this.
Is that not amazing? And it's worth a lot of money because people are paying top dollar for this art book. In fact, I paid top dollar for this art book because it was amazing to find. Well, that's another Buy Day. Thanks for watching. Please watch next Friday and every Friday for more adventures in the world of books.